This is your country, our country. We have to live in it, unless, like so many of our sons and daughters, we emigrate to a land which offers more opportunity to earn a living wage than does our own country.
The school was run by the parish priest. He would say regularly, he would go around, he would say, Liverpool for you, Cricklewood for you, Kilburn for you. The actual heartache of leaving a place where you knew for somewhere that you didn't know, and somewhere that you had been told was the enemy of Ireland, was a godless country, was a place where only riffraff went. It seemed extraordinary since it's only 60 miles across the water, but there was a sense of loss of status, fear, not quite sure who you were anymore.
I came to England in August of 1952.
1960.
The 30th of July 1954.
1963. Green as grass after coming out of the country. I was green.
A lot of the young people in Ireland don't know what went on, you know, about the mass immigration from England. The younger generation don't know anything about that. I don't think they really want to know.
You had to leave Ireland because we were big families. There was nothing in it. It was poor. It's destitute. Sorry to have to say it is destitute. It's the best country in the world, and they're the greatest people in the world. They went to the States. They've made good, but they won't make good in England. Because from the time they start in England, they're not wanted.
The night I come to England, we come over on the Princess Maud, and I'd never been on a ship in my life, you know, and it was really, really rough, you know. I arrived in Birmingham that Sunday. I tell you, it was the 30th of July 1954, the day of the World Cup final. West Germany and Hungary, and we were going around looking for digs, and everywhere we went, there was digs for 2 men, but no Irish, and that frightened me. It really did frighten me. The second day I was there, I went looking for work, but I finished up that night. I was roaring and crying, and I told me mate I was going to go home because nothing appealed to me. I was frightened of the police for one thing, and you know, it felt like because you were Irish, they were watching you every step of the way.
My name is Bill McGrainer. I come from Wicklow Town, Ireland. I was probably one of the shyest people that ever come out of Ireland, you know. I worked with Irish, naturally being in the building trade, but I never ever joined in their way of life. I never went to the Irish clubs or... See, I always had this in my head, people that ask questions. Where would I come from? What did I do? What school I went to? We had this built-in shame, shall we call it. Since all this came out about the institutions and that, I'd made contact with some other lads, and I thought it would be nice to go back, visit them, talk to them about their lives.
You get good satisfaction just having to, well, remembering the old times, you know, and
talking about how our life has panned out since, like, you know.
And how we survived.
We weren't then classed as survivors. We were guys that had done something wrong and we were punished for it. And of course, when we came out of these institutions, they these people thought like that, you know. They treated us accordingly. And that's why a lot of the lads went abroad, went to England. I started off, worked in a factory. This factory was predominantly women. And this one woman, she kind of took me under her wing. And eventually we struck up a relationship, and we got married, and we had a couple of children, 2 boys. Because of my experience in institutions, found it very, very difficult to settle down into married life. Eventually, our relationship broke up, predominantly because of the way I was.
There were crowds of people standing on the platform weeping, distraught as their daughters and sons were leaving, and they weren't quite sure when they'd see them again.
We were leaving Ireland in droves, weren't we? Nearly every ferry that come from Dunleary or North Wall was packed with people not going back to Ireland. They just come over here to work because the work wasn't in Ireland.
Hello. Along this platform in a minute will come the Irish Mail, the train from Holyhead bringing hundreds of Irish people to England. They spent the night on the boat and on the long train journey across Wales and the west of England. They've come perhaps to seek a job, to start a new life in England. What sort of a crossing is it?
Plenty of beer. It was kind of rough, but we made us off with the beer.
I've done a lot of pictures of emigration, and the idea of arriving early in the morning in the 1950s, the trains packed, and that sense of apprehension of what it was like to arrive as a woman or a man, young man, and not really have anywhere solid to go to. If you went to England, the door closed after you. In fact, the standard greetings, rather comic in a way, the standard greetings that when you came back on holidays, people would say to you, "When are you going back?"
That's right! Send the phone!
I come to London in 1963. No, it was okay. I came to visit the brother Mike, and I only came over on a holiday, see. And I forgot to go back, didn't I? I suppose, like a lot of people, I thought the grass was greener. No. No, I was never married. I lived with a few women, of course, naturally enough. Yeah, I did, yeah. Oh, I treated them all right. I haven't been back now since the mother's funeral. I was working in Swindon when Mother went to heaven, yeah. Gee, that's about, well, let's see, crikey, that must be 14, 15 years ago, more.
And did you keep in contact with home?
Well, I had all the phone numbers and addresses on a diary. And the zip on the settee and the cushions, I had my diary in there. And of course I forgot. And all the phone numbers and the addresses gone. So I couldn't phone then, really.
long you here now? 7 years?
7, yeah.
That's a good while, isn't it?
It is, surely. Yeah.
You need to settle down now and be a bit more comfort.
That's right.
Are you looking forward to your move into St. Eugene's?
Oh, I am, yeah.
Yeah. It'll be a lot better for you.
Do you know, like I said, like, I am vulnerable here.
Yeah, you are vulnerable.
You know, if anything did happen.
And there's stuff happening around here?
Oh, yeah. In the past, I have.
Does it make you a wee bit nervous?
Not nervous, no. No, but, you know, you in the house on your own, you do feel vulnerable. But I was 26 years down in Wales. I was, yeah, I liked it down in Wales. Then you're working with contractors like, and contractor might lose the work.
The need in Britain was, after the war, was to rebuild Britain, all the bombed towns, all the bombed cities, and they also needed to lay down the infrastructure of the new motorways, and therefore they needed people who could be trained fairly easily.
Who was jumping on the wagons? Who was doing the work in this country? They're all Irishmen. Every one of them. They're Irish contractors and they're Irish labour. Who built the road at the Nag's Head? John Murphy, a man from Dingle in the County Kerry.
You were going to go there as a bundle of muscles, and that was all what you wanted for, because you had no education, you had no skills. All you could do was demolition. You were a piece of meat.
At the dungeon as atomic plant I worked at steel erecting, crawling like a human fly and always that expecting.
I'm a Roman jack of all trades, of every trade and all trades, and if you want to know my name, they call me Jack of all trades.
When you came over, you brought over a few mates with you. You were lonely. Remember, homesickness is operating. So many builders employed their friends and cut corners and had what was called as a lump. In other words, a group of guys would all work on building sites without paying any wage, any pension money, any national insurance, any tax.
The next job I worked on was digging a drain. I moved up the trench like a big diesel train. They laid up the rest of the gang then, and therefore the equal of 10 was the Rambler from Clare.
Back in the 50s and the 60s, they actually kept the Irish economy going. The people who actually lived here by sending money back home. And there should be a recognition around them, you know, that as they get older in life, they probably do need more support. You know, they do need that more help.
I kind of like it on my own. I just go down the street there, I get the bus down, and I know all the shops. I go around and get a bit every day, you know. And that takes up a bit of time. I take my time going around the shops, and then I do a bit of cooking and cleaning, and then I do a bit of woodwork. I call it, I have a spare bedroom there. I turned it into a kind of a workshop. I have a clatter of tools in there. I work away that way. I make bits of things that I don't have much use for at times. I was sad enough leaving, yeah. I think I'd be about 50 years here now. I think this year I would be 50 years here. At the time, the M5 motorway had just started. And I started driving machines then, you know. You couldn't actually settle anywhere because of the work. Either on the move or you had to pack a job up and find another one. And you never could say that you had a
permanent friends because once that job finished, you're never going to see them again. You might run across them again, but you could never really have or keep in touch even with permanent friends. Yeah.
I was out in a world of my own, and I had to make the most of it. So it wasn't as nice as I thought it would be.
When you're off work, all right, you go back to your lodge and you go in, you get your dinner and you get a wash. And they didn't want you hanging about. You had to go out. Yeah, right, you could go to the cinema a couple of nights or something in a week. But you couldn't keep going to it all the time, so, I mean, what were you going to do? You couldn't walk the street. So you'd end up going to the pub just to talk to someone.
A known thing in the 50s here, you know, the Irish had nowhere to go except at night time when they finished work. Well, a lot of the subcontractors, this was one. Most of the pubs on Stratford Road, they took their men in there and they paid them in the pub, you know. Because when you get paid in the pub, you're going to drink a lot more, aren't you? You know, that was the carry on. But the relationship was, you know, as I said, you get 24 points for a pound. You won't stay in the house looking at four walls, or you come down here for company's sake more than anything else. But then you finish up heavy on the drink.
In the pub they drank the sub, and up in Camden Town you'll find them. They've sweated blood and they've washed down muds with pints and quarts of beer.
You could argue that these lads were exploited by their employers, who tended to be fellow Irishmen. They knew they could entice them into the pub to pay them their wages. The pubs tend to be owned by these people as well, so it was a self-financing type of industry going on.
And if you pride your life, don't join by Christ with McAlpine's usually.
I never drank in Dublin before I came over, so I started here. We only frequented Dublin pubs, like there was a few. You had the Clifton, the Wagon and Horses, the Shakespeare, but there was a pub in the town, and they called it the Irish Labour Exchange, the Windsor. That's just reopened. So if you come over from Dublin and you went to the Windsor, you got a job. Somebody would always, a Dublin fella would always get you fixed up in a job. All the Dublin people were very, very close, you know. You'd say, we go into this pub, it's a Dublin pub, you know. And, I mean, I was in the pub one night and we called this one little room the Dublin bar, and the other one was all the country lads, you know. And I had a mate, Jim Griffin, and someone said to him, it was very quiet in the Culture bar tonight. And he said, well, we still sort that out, you know. And but the country lads, they all stuck together as well, and they worked for their own people, subcontracting. But you see, when you work for a subcontractor, you got money into the hand. So you weren't getting your card stamped or anything like that.
It was quite a definite split. The lads who seemed to come out from Dublin appeared to have a higher level of education and a bit more about themselves, which sounds odd to say, but you know that's how it appeared. And the lads who come out from Dublin seem to have survived a bit better.
The Dublin fellas, a lot of them had good jobs. A Dublin man was known, he was either a pipe fitter or a painter. And people just say, Dublin must be the prettiest city in the world, you know, because everyone that comes over is a painter. And that's a known fact. The job I got at the United Waterworks on Adderley Street, people from Crumlin wrote letters to me, asked me to get their sons. Now, I'm not exaggerating, I said that. I've got 16 people from Dublin jobs in that factory. I have to say that, yeah, I made a good life for myself in England. I'll honestly say, I don't think I'd have done as well in Ireland. I was my own boss, I had my own pub, and I have had about 5 or 6 different pubs. I've done very well out of it, you know, so.
As the stories of England began to feed back, they began to transform Ireland. And obviously, if your brother went out to England and was coming back now with sending remittances back, coming back twice a year with nice suits and hiring a car in Dublin, you thought, well, I mean, it can't be all that bad. But it's bringing back to Ireland new sets of values. Values about how you can live in England, how what you've been told before isn't true. And how, for instance, instead of waiting for your poor mother to give you £1 to go in and enjoy yourself on a Friday night in the town, you now have £40, with no mother to tell you when you should stop. When they came over here to dance halls and all the rest of it, some guys had difficulty, they were shy. They had difficulty, they needed their mammy. So they would come to a dance hall and they'd walk across the floor to a girl and he'd say, do you want to dance? And she'd look at her friend, she'd say, I think I'll sit this one out. And he'd walk back across the floor, even more dejected, a bit angry, a bit frustrated. He'd go over and have a couple of pints to kind of get his feelings going and be able to walk. By this time, for the second walk across the floor, he mightn't be able to walk in quite a straight line, and he would have no hope at all.
To drink and fight, that's just the image we've got, and women last, of course, but...
So these male guys were often allowed to drift further and further into an isolated world of depression, drink, homelessness, fecklessness, without the structure of life.
When the work dried up and they became too ill, they found little bedsits to live in, and it's almost as if they've been stuck in a time warp, and between being a young active lad on the building site and they're now 60, 70, 80-year-old vulnerable people, and when we go into the properties it is like going back in time. You know, it's like they've shut the door 30, 40 years ago and haven't opened it again.
I'm worn out and finished, but what do they care? For they've had all they want of the Rambler from Clare.
I done them this year. They're what they call roosters. They grow them a lot in Ireland. They're good spuds. It's just a matter of curiosity to see how many I'll get out of that, you know. Actually, I could buy them a lot cheaper than be bothered, but it's something to occupy the mind, isn't it?
A lot of the clients we find in very poor conditions. Now, Patrick was an extreme case, but by no means an exception. It's a sort of day that'll live long in my memory. There was a big old Victorian house, and we walked in through the front door, and on the side was a little room which I thought was just a broom cupboard. We sort of opened the door, and from the floor to the ceiling was rubbish. In the corner of the room, all you could see was two piercing blue eyes coming out from beneath this pile of rubbish. And it wasn't until we moved a bit closer we moved some of the rubbish away and actually found out that it was a person, which we now know was Patrick. He didn't say much. He didn't really need to say much because his eyes they were the saddest eyes I've probably ever seen. And he started crying. And then after a few minutes, he just said, you know, can you help me? And we rolled on from there. Then the support worker started working with him, working on his confidence and his health. And then he's gone on onwards and upwards and into the accommodation that he's in today.
It wasn't easy. It wasn't easy. For all I went through, I was expecting a lot better. But that's life, that's the way it is. I suppose there's ones a lot worse off than me. I heard a bit of a rhyme one time. I think I might remember it. A man stood at the Golden Gate. His face was gnarled and old. He looked towards the man of faith for admission to the fold. What have you done, St. Peter asked, to seek admission here? I've dove heavy machines for many's a weary year. The Golden Gate flew open wide when Peter touched the bell. Step in, says he, and choose your pew, you've served your time in hell.
There's groups of us over there in England that being incarcerated in institutions that have got together since all this has come out. We've become a little community, and it's sad in a way that it's come to this, really, because we were never to blame for what happened to us. I was in Artane only for a very short period of time, so I mean, I'm not too well up on what happened in Artane. Only
well, I was in Artane for 6 years and 10 months.
I know you were, yeah. So you're more...
Yeah. As I say, I was lucky in Artane. I played hurling and football for them and that, and you got a little bit of leeway, but not a lot. My brother ran away 3 times out of Artane. And there was one time he got up in the middle of the night and he got dressed and he sneaked out. And anyway, they cut him down in Fairview Park. And he brought him back, shaved all his hair off. And he put him standing at a wall. And he was standing at that wall for nearly 3 years. Any recreation time we got, he had to stand at that wall. It was just very sadistic, it was really. I played against Marina one day in Parnell Park, and I played very well. And Brother Drew, he said to me, "Well done, O'Neill." He said, "You were very good today. Anything I can do if you let me know." So I said, "Let me brother off the charge." He said, "What charge?" They'd just forgotten all about him. And he was standing at that wall for nearly 3 years. That hurted me more in Artane than anything they'd done to me. I thought it was terrible what they'd done to the kid. The one thing I noticed when I came out of Artane, my neighbours were a bit funny towards us, you know what I mean? Don't be playing with him, you know. Or you found it hard, if you asked a girl for a date or that, no way, you know. That's one of the things that made me leave Dublin, because I had a job and all.
It was like a magpie. Everything that was put down was nicked. Now I know who it was.
Everything, if it didn't move, it was eaten.
My existence, or my time that I spent here in Baltimore, I suppose I wanted to see what it was like if my memory had failed me, or was it real? Did I actually go through that experience? Let me get this right now. That is a dormitory. Come down. You got a refectory below it, didn't you? There was a guy there teacher called Foley. He'd go out to the classroom to smoke, and he'd put this other kid in, one of his favourites, like, you know, he'd put him in charge of us. And he was a bully, an out-and-out bully. He picked on me. I was only a little fella, like, you know, fresh-faced guy. He took me up the back of the school one day and took his privates out, took his penis out and asked me to masturbate him. This went on for maybe 7 or 8 times, like, you know. But anyway, this one day he took me over the back, and there was a lot of ferns, like thorns and ferns and that, and I remember he took me Gansey off and he threw me down on top of the Gansey, and he raped me. Well, you know, I was in a terrible state. I was crying and I was in pain and that, and anyway, it finished. I remember I remember it finished and I came away. I don't know how, I don't remember much about it. I remember staggering down towards Foley's car, and Foley was standing by the car, and I must have been in a state because he said to me, "What's wrong with you?" And I said to him that he'd hurt me, like, you know, that, because I didn't know the ins and outs of. But Foley guessed what had happened, I think, and he said, I remember he caught me by the ear, and he walked me so far up the lane, and he said, "You get telling people stories like that, causing trouble for us, you'll have me to answer for." I felt guilty that I was put into an institution like this. They couldn't settle back into life in their own areas, so they came to England to basically get away from it. And I felt, for the few months that I stayed in Wicklow after I came out of the institution, we kind of stigmatised.
We've known James for quite some time now. He's starting to take a grip of his life, and he hasn't taken any alcohol now for some time, and he just wants to hopefully remain that way. Right, so what have we got to move? This and those two boxes.
Those two boxes and the bank in the room.
And then chin.
I was glad to get out of it. Honest to God, I was. Glad to get out. Yeah.
St Eugene's came about from research that was done back in the late 90s. It identified 700 or 800 older Irish men in Birmingham who were living in poor quality landlord accommodation, bedsits, who were basically being socially excluded.
That's the games room in there, James.
Well, once they come in here, then we can access GPs. The fact is somebody's having 2 meals a day. The personal hygiene can improve. We can provide care within here. That, in a sense, starts that improvement in the quality of life.
This is the atrium here, James.
Yes.
It's called the atrium, and all the plants in here, all the residents, they get plants and they look after them themselves. And then a lot of them, they come in here with their papers and have a bit of a read and a relax, and it's nice and cool.
Can you smoke?
You can't smoke in any part of the building except your room. And this is also, it's a no smoking area.
You can't smoke in your room?
You can smoke in your room, James.
Look, remember the last time it's all new carpet now and all painted.
You have a shower, James, and the hot water. Everything is in order.
It's a damn sight more cleaner than where I left, I can guarantee you that.
You're not alone anymore. We're here to support you any way we can.
Oh, lovely. Our crikey is brilliant, isn't it? Fine big windows, good airy place, isn't it? Good all round view. Yeah.
How are you, sir? You all right?
Yes.
Waiting on your dinner?
Aye.
Huh? Going for a walk?
I was 18 before I ever touched a drink. I never drank in Ireland. Cost me some money since and me health, nearly. A lot of people, I think, when they stop work, when they give up the work, they get fed up then and start on the drink then to fill in the time or whatever. I was drinking awful heavy. That's the trouble with alcohol, you don't realise yourself. And you think you're okay and you think you're great, you know? Far from it. Other people could see it, like. No, the person herself, no.
You haven't been home in 15 years, so why now?
It's when you stop drinking and, you know, get your head together. But then, as I say, they're all getting on a bit.
And did they know you're coming home?
No, no. I'd surprise them. No.
The two pub explosions were so devastating that the police have spent much of today establishing that no more bodies were lying under the rubble.
The night that happened, I went into my own club and I was on the committee in the club. Nobody spoke to me and my missus. And the next thing, the barman come down, he said, another pub gone up, another explosion in the town. I said, what's wrong? He said, the bastard IRA is after blowing up 2 pubs in the town, you know.
And while the forensic experts examined the wreckage of this, the worst peacetime bombing in Britain, scores of detectives were raiding known Irish addresses in the Midlands.
You know, something that people don't particularly like to talk about that much. But in a sense, as an ethnic group within the city, it set them back 20 years. You know, politically, socially, culturally. You know, it was sort of like, you know, a recognition by second-generation Irish, that a lot of them didn't want to be recognised as Irish.
The anti-Irish feeling has been increasing today.
The attitude did change a lot towards the Irish, I have to say that, you know. I went into work the next morning and the chap who was a mate of mine, I worked with him for about 3 years before that, working on the same cars together. He told the foreman, he said, I'm not working with him. So I said, you don't want to work with me, so I put on my coat and went home. People that you would have been drinking with, they did just ignored us, you know, didn't want to have to do with us, you know. And that went on for a long time.
It drew the Irish community closer together. They became quite an insular community, quite a private community. You could argue you wouldn't even know they're there half of the time. The communities that the Irish used to live in, when they first came over here and settled, probably in the last 10 years, that's broken down now. Because of the ageing population in the Irish community, they've moved out of those accommodations.
This was predominantly Irish. That was a great Irish shopping centre. All the shops were Irish now, but unfortunately, it's like the times that all along here now is all up to, you're going up to Shirley, and all the shops up there and down here, they're all predominantly Asian, you know. But all these houses now, these were all Irish, they're all gone. They're all Asians about all these houses. Down as far as the Antelope and even down to Camp Hill.
Yeah, the Irish are the only ethnic minority within Britain where the health actually worsens from first generation to second generation, particularly around heart disease, and it's actually getting worse in third generation as well. Every other ethnic group, actually health of that improves from first to second to third. Yet it's the reverse with the Irish. So for whatever you got like this group of people who've done really well here, there's a big group of people who haven't, and it's in the end that seems to have got worse as generations have gone on.
They started off by having good friends in the pub, abandoning the hope of getting a wife or settling down, and hoping they could go back to Ireland, never eventually being able to go back to Ireland, and then finding that nobody else wanted to join their conversation because it was marinated in Guinness, and it depended upon nostalgia, that you would talk about the great things you did in the past, the hard life you had, and how you bested the opponent. And that is a conversation that you can't join into.
I missed not being able to contact the family, you know. I always used to keep in touch. But when I lost the dairy, I lost contact. Holy Cross. Remember that was there. Well, yeah, it must be 15 years. They'll be delighted to see me. Well, I hope so. That's the Cumberland Mountains. The Cumberland Mountains won't move. This would be it. Yeah. How are you doing, John? How's Tom? Yeah.
It's lovely down.
Yeah.
I said to myself, is it you or isn't it?
Surely.
Well,
Yeah.
this is unexpected.
It's his, eh?
How are you?
Oh, great. Sound, yeah.
I didn't see you for a long time.
Yeah.
What?
No.
Yourself
I
is a
can't
boy.
think him.
That's Jim.
Huh?
Jim. Jim Shanahan.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, how will I know?
Is it, Tom?
That is.
I know you, Jim.
Well, last time I was going to get some surprise. Were you in above?
I was. I knocked the door. I know it's Kathleen in.
She's in. She didn't hear you. She's out the back.
Ah, right. Ah.
We're roasting, but we're splitting a few sticks here.
Ah, surely. Beautiful day, wasn't it?
Yeah, it is. Go way up the road there and I'll tell her that you're outside.
But,
She'll be delighted to see you.
ah, sound, yeah. This is...
Little more to be left.
Ah. Beautiful day, isn't it?
Thank
Or
God.
was.
Thank God.
John Whelan didn't know me. Tom did all right, the son.
Hello. Hello.
With a person look in the mirror, you think you're still the same, but other people see you like,
What a surprise. I can't believe it.
As I say, since Mother's funeral, wasn't it? That was the last
That
time.
was the
yeah.
last time. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the
I was
last
thinking, all right, 15 or more.
89, wasn't it?
89.
89.
Ah,
Yeah.
20 years
Yeah.
now.
You just decided on the spot of the moment,
I did, Tom. Yeah. Yeah.
No be out a long time, I hear.
No.
You give it up, you did.
I did,
Unbelievable.
I made it.
You made it.
Made it in the finish.
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
It is in Birmingham you are now, is it?
It is, Kathleen, yeah.
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 Ah.
I love the countryside. I do. It's like heaven on earth. Away from all the traffic and the hustle and the bustle. It is. Can you tell me the way to Kilmacthomas, please?
You're only about 10 minutes, quarter of an hour from it now.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. I bet you don't know me. I'm Jim Shanahan.
You're joking.
What? This is Eileen, the
This is
sister of
Mary.
Eileen.
Mary.
Mary.
Mary,
Eileen.
yes. Yeah, not Eileen. For God's sake.
I couldn't believe it was 20 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You'd be amazed to let the time go, wouldn't
It
you?
flies, don't it? Yeah.
Have you got some place to stay?
I'm staying with Kathleen.
Oh, are you going
Ah.
to stay with Kathleen?
Yeah.
Yes.
I would like to come back one good. When you're working like and younger, you don't take much notice. But as you get on, it's nice to be back in the home country.
I've got a patriotism, like, you know, I am patriotic to Ireland, and I like Ireland, I love Ireland. But when I go back to Birmingham, I'm going home.
I like the idea of and I would like to spend the last years, whatever I have, at home.
I'm Irish to the core, you know, everybody knows that, because all I sing, if I was to sit down to Dublin tonight and they asked me up to sing, they all know what I'm going to sing. It could be The Fields of Athenry, Dublin in the Rare Old Time. My favourite song is the Irish National Anthem.
I might go back for good, but not for now, like. Maybe in so many years' time, I might. Everything here is so handy and you get so used to it, like, isn't it? When I look back, you know, since I gave up the drink, you be thinking to yourself, what a blooming fool I was, you know, who would you? What a waste, isn't it? Ruination. If I hadn't left, I don't know, things, hard to say whether they'd have turned out different. Would I have done the same things?
And I went back in again and I tapped on the door. She said, "Are you going to be coming on?" I said, "No, sister, I just want to know where England is."
What came out in the last 10 or 15 years with the abuse and the rest of it, I think that has maybe clouded my view of Ireland.
How we look on ourselves is through the Irish eyes in Ireland. We're concerned about how you see us.
This is your country, our country. We have to live in it, unless, like so many of our sons and daughters, we emigrate to a land which offers more opportunity to earn a living wage than does our own country.
The school was run by the parish priest. He would say regularly, he would go around, he would say, Liverpool for you, Cricklewood for you, Kilburn for you. The actual heartache of leaving a place where you knew for somewhere that you didn't know, and somewhere that you had been told was the enemy of Ireland, was a godless country, was a place where only riffraff went. It seems extraordinary since it's only 60 miles across the water, but there was a sense of loss of status, fear, not quite sure who you were anymore.
I came to England in August of 1952.
1960.
The 30th of July 1954.
1963. Green as grass after coming out of the country. I was green.
A lot of the young people in Ireland don't know what went on, you know, about the mass emigration from England. The younger generation don't know anything about that. I don't think they really want to know.
You had to leave Ireland because we were big families. There was nothing in it. It was poor. It's destitute. Sorry to have to say this is destitute. It's the best country in the world, and they're the greatest people in the world. They went to the States. They've made good, but they won't make good in England. Because from the time they start in England, they're not wanted.
The night I come to England, we come over on the Princess Maud, and I'd never been on a ship in my life, you know, and it was really, really rough, you know. I arrived in Birmingham that Sunday. I tell you, it was the 30th of July 1954, the day of the World Cup final. West Germany and Hungary, and we were going around looking for digs, and everywhere we went, there was digs for 2 men, but no Irish, and that frightened me. It really did frighten me. The second day I was there, I went looking for work, but I finished up that night. I was roaring and crying, and I told me mate I was going to go home because nothing appealed to me. I was frightened of the police for one thing, and you know, it felt like because you were Irish, they were watching you every step of the way.
My name is Bill McGrainer. I come from Wicklow Town, Ireland. I was probably one of the shyest people that ever come out of Ireland, you know. I worked with Irish, naturally being in the building trade, but I never ever joined in their way of life. I never went to the Irish clubs or... See, I always had this in my head. People would ask questions. Where would I come from? What did I do? What school I went to? We had this built-in shame, shall we call it. Since all this came out about the institutions and that, I'd made contact with some other lads, and I thought it would be nice to go back, visit them, talk to them about their lives.
You get good satisfaction just having to, well, remembering the old times, you know, and
talking about how our life has panned out since, like, you know.
And how we survived.
We weren't then classed as survivors. We were guys that had done something wrong and we were punished for it. And of course, when we came out of these institutions, they these people thought like that, you know. They treated us accordingly. And that's why a lot of the lads went abroad, went to England.